First contact. In the vast expanse of the Andromeda Galaxy, the Zorgan Empire reigned supreme. For eons, they had conquered and subjugated countless worlds, their advanced technology and ruthless tactics making them an unstoppable force. Captain Krasnik, a battle-hardened veteran, commanded the Zorgan exploration fleet as it ventured into uncharted space, seeking new worlds to bring under the Empire's control. As the fleet emerged from hyperspace, their sensors detected an anomaly. A solitary ship drifting through the void. Krasnik's eyes narrowed as he examined the readouts. The vessel was small, barely a blip on their screens, and its design was unlike anything the Zorgans had encountered before. "Hail them," Krasnik ordered, his voice rasping through the bridge. "Let us see what manner of creature dares to cross our path." The communications officer nodded, sending out a standard greeting in the Zorgan tongue. Moments later, a response crackled through the speakers, and an image flickered to life on the view screen. Krasnik's eyes widened in surprise. The being on the screen was soft and fleshy, with pale skin and curious, intelligent eyes. It spoke in a language the Zorgans had never heard before, but the universal translator quickly adapted. "Greetings," the creature said, its voice calm and even. "I am Captain Natalie Chen of the Terran Sciences ship Indomitable. We come in peace, seeking to explore and learn." Krasnik scoffed at the notion. In the Zorgan Empire, there was no peace, only conquest and submission. He leaned forward, his voice dripping with menace. "Captain Chen," he growled, "you have entered Zorgan space. You will surrender your vessel and submit to the will of the Empire, or face destruction." To his surprise, Captain Chen merely smiled, a glint of amusement in her eyes. "Captain Krasnik," she replied, "I believe you have misunderstood our purpose here. We have no intention of surrendering, nor do we seek conflict." Krasnik's rage boiled over at the human's insolence. "Then you have sealed your fate," he snarled. "Prepare to be boarded and enslaved, like all who defy the Zorgan Empire." But as he spoke, the human ship began to change. Panels shifted and retracted, revealing an array of weapons and advanced technology that belied its humble appearance. The Indomitable was no mere science vessel. It was a warship, disguised and ready for battle. Captain Chen's smile never wavered as she spoke again, her voice now edged with steel. "I suggest you reconsider your actions, Captain Krasnik. We are not as defenseless as we appear." And with those words, the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, as the Zorgans faced a species unlike any they had encountered before. The humans, it seemed, were full of surprises, and Krasnik suddenly realized that this encounter would not unfold as he had planned. As the tense standoff continued, Krasnik couldn't help but feel a twinge of admiration for these audacious humans. They were outnumbered and outgunned, yet they showed no fear in the face of the Zorgan fleet. It was a brazenness he had rarely seen in all his years of conquest. But admiration aside, Krasnik knew his duty. The Zorgan Empire did not tolerate defiance, and these humans would learn the price of their insolence. He turned to his weapons officer, ready to give the order to fire, when Captain Chen's voice cut through the silence once more. "Before you make a decision you may regret, Captain Krasnik, I suggest you consider the potential benefits of a peaceful interaction. We have much to offer each other, if you are willing to listen." Krasnik paused, caught off guard by the offer. The Zorgan way was to conquer and control, not to negotiate or cooperate. And yet, as he looked at the sleek, advanced Terran ship, he couldn't deny the allure of their technology. Perhaps there was something to be gained from a different approach. With a growl of frustration, Krasnik turned back to the view screen. "Very well, Captain Chen. I will hear what you have to say. But know this, the Zorgan Empire does not bow to the whims of lesser species. You will have to prove your worth if you wish to avoid subjugation." Captain Chen nodded, her expression serious but hopeful. "I assure you, Captain Krasnik, we have much to prove and even more to offer. Let us begin a dialogue and see where it leads." And so, as the Zorgan fleet and the TSS Indomitable hung in the void, An unexpected encounter began to unfold, one that would challenge the very foundations of the Zorgan Empire and reveal the true potential of the human spirit. The stage was set for a clash of civilizations and a test of wills that would echo through the stars, unleashing the fury. As the tense negotiations between Captain Chen and Krasnik unfolded, the Zorgan captain couldn't shake the feeling that he was being played. These humans, with their soft bodies and strange language, seemed too confident, too assured of their position. It was as if they knew something he didn't, and the thought unnerved him. Krasnik's suspicions were soon confirmed when, without warning, the TSS Indomitable sprang into action. In a blinding flash of light, the human ship unleashed a barrage of electromagnetic pulse weapons, targeting the Zorgan fleet's vulnerable systems. The Zorgan ships, caught off guard by the sudden attack, found themselves crippled and adrift, their power systems overloaded and their weapons offline. On the bridge of his flagship, Krasnik roared in fury as alarms blared and consoles sparked around him. "What treachery is this?" he bellowed, slamming his fist against the arm of his command chair. "The humans will pay for their deceit." But even as he spoke, Krasnik couldn't help but marvel at the effectiveness of the human weapons. In a matter of moments, they had neutralized a fleet that had conquered worlds, and they had done so with a technology the Zorgans had never seen before. As the Zorgan crews scrambled to restore power and bring their ships back under control, Captain Chen's face appeared once more on the viewscreen. Gone was the friendly diplomacy of their earlier exchange, replaced by a steely determination that sent a chill down Krasnik's spine. "Captain Krasnik," Chen said, her voice cold and unyielding, "I tried to reason with you, to find a peaceful solution to our differences. But you and your kind only understand one language, the language of force. So be it." Krasnik snarled in defiance, even as he felt a grudging respect for the human captain's resolve. "You think you have won, human. You have only sealed your own doom. The Zorgan Empire will not rest until we have crushed you and your pathetic species beneath our heel." But Captain Chen merely smiled, a smile that held no warmth or mercy. "You underestimate us, Captain Krasnik. We are not some primitive race, cowering in fear of your might. We are humanity, and we have faced challenges far greater than the likes of you." With those words, the TSS Indomitable began to move, its sleek form cutting through the void with a grace and speed that belied its size. As Krasnik watched, helpless and seething, the human ship positioned itself between the Zorgan fleet and their homeworld, a silent challenge and a declaration of intent. "We will not be intimidated," Captain Chen declared, her voice ringing out across the stars. "We will not be conquered, and we will not back down. The Zorgan Empire has met its match, and the galaxy will tremble at the fury of humanity unleashed." And with that, the battle was joined, as the TSS Indomitable and the crippled Zorgan fleet clashed in a desperate struggle for survival and dominance. Krasnik, his pride and his empire on the line, could only watch in stunned disbelief as the humans proved, beyond any doubt, that they were a force to be reckoned with. In the chaos of the battle, Krasnik found himself grudgingly admiring the humans' tactics and technology. Their ship moved with a fluidity and precision that the Zorgans could only dream of, darting in and out of range, striking at weak points with surgical accuracy. And their weapons, those damnable EM pulses, continued to wreak havoc on the Zorgan systems, leaving them floundering and exposed. But the Zorgans were not so easily defeated. Driven by desperation and a fierce desire to protect their homeworld, they fought back with everything they had, their own weapons carving glowing scars across the void. The TSS Indomitable, for all its advanced technology, was not invulnerable, and soon bore the marks of the Zorgans' furious counterattack. As the battle raged on, Krasnik found himself locked in a personal duel with Captain Chen, their wills clashing across the vastness of space. He grudgingly respected her cunning and her resolve, even as he sought to break her and her ship. But the human captain was a formidable opponent, meeting every challenge with a determination and resourcefulness that left Krasnik both frustrated and begrudgingly impressed. In the end, it was the Zorgans who blinked first. Battered, bleeding, and faced with the prospect of total annihilation, Krasnik made the difficult decision to call for a retreat. It galled him to admit defeat, especially to a species he had so recently dismissed as inferior. But he knew that to continue the fight would be to court disaster. As the remnants of the Zorgan fleet limped away, their pride shattered and their future uncertain, Krasnik couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The humans had proven themselves a formidable adversary, and he knew that the Zorgan Empire would not rest until they had found a way to overcome this new threat. But for now, as the TSS Indomitable stood victorious among the stars, Krasnik could only reflect on the harsh lessons he had learned. The galaxy, it seemed, was a far more complex and dangerous place than he had ever imagined, and the Zorgans would need to adapt if they hoped to survive in this brave new era. With a heavy heart and a newfound respect for his enemy, Krasnik began the long journey back to Zorgan space, his thoughts consumed by the challenges that lay ahead. The war had only just begun, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance. Negotiating from strength. In the aftermath of the brutal clash between the Zorgan fleet and the TSS Indomitable, an uneasy silence settled over the battlefield. The Zorgan ships, battered and limping, hung in space like wounded beasts, their crews struggling to repair the damage wrought by the humans' devastating weapons. On the bridge of his flagship, Captain Krasnik sat in brooding contemplation, his mind racing as he tried to make sense of the events that had just transpired. How could this have happened? The Zorgans were the undisputed masters of the galaxy, their technology and military might unrivaled by any species they had encountered. And yet, in a matter of moments, a single human ship had brought them to their knees, exposing vulnerabilities they had never even known existed. As Krasnik wrestled with these thoughts, a chime sounded on his console, indicating an incoming transmission. With a snarl of frustration, he jabbed at the controls, and the image of Captain Natalie Chen flickered to life on the view screen. "Captain Krasnik," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I think it's time we talked." Krasnik bristled at the presumption in her tone, but he knew he had little choice but to listen. His fleet was in no condition to continue the fight, and he needed time to regroup and reassess. "What do you want, human?" he growled, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. Captain Chen leaned forward, her gaze intense and unwavering. "I want what I've always wanted, Captain, a peaceful resolution to our conflict. We have shown you the strength of our resolve and the power of our technology. Now I offer you a chance to benefit from that technology, in exchange for a cessation of hostilities." Krasnik's eyes widened in surprise. This was not the demand for surrender he had expected, but rather an offer of cooperation. It was a concept so alien to the Zorgan way of thinking that he almost laughed out loud. But as he considered the proposal, Krasnik began to see the wisdom in it. The humans had proven themselves to be far more advanced than the Zorgans had ever imagined, and access to their technology could give the Zorgan Empire a much-needed edge in the battles to come. And yet, the idea of partnering with a species they had so recently sought to conquer galled him. It went against everything the Zorgans stood for, everything they had ever known. As if sensing his hesitation, Captain Chen pressed on. "Think about it, Captain. Your empire is vast and powerful, but it is not invincible. There will always be new challenges, new threats to your dominance. By working with us, you can ensure that the Zorgan Empire remains strong and resilient, ready to face whatever the future may bring." Krasnik sat back in his chair, his mind whirling with the implications of her words. She was right, damn her. The Zorgan Empire had grown complacent, secure in its own superiority. But the galaxy was changing, and they needed to change with it if they hoped to survive. With a heavy sigh, Krasnik made his decision. "Very well, Captain Chen. We will discuss your proposal. But know this, the Zorgan Empire will not be dictated to. Any agreement between our species must be one of equals, not of conqueror. and conquered. Captain Chen nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I would expect nothing less, Captain. Let us begin, then, and see what the future holds." And so, in the cold emptiness of space, two civilizations began the tentative process of building a new understanding, a new way forward. It would not be easy, for the wounds of the past ran deep, and the differences between them were vast. But with each passing moment, each halting step towards cooperation, the possibility of a brighter future grew stronger. For Krasnik, it was a bitter pill to swallow, a challenge to everything he had ever believed. But as he looked out at the stars, at the infinite potential that lay before them, he knew that he had no choice but to embrace the change that was coming. The Zorgan Empire would adapt, and it would thrive, even if it meant forging alliances with the very species they had once sought to destroy. And perhaps in the end, they would emerge stronger and wiser for the experience. Only time would tell. But for now, the negotiations had begun, and the fate of two civilizations hung in the balance, poised on the brink of a new era of discovery and cooperation. As the talks between the Zorgans and humans continued, Krasnik found himself increasingly impressed by the depth and breadth of human knowledge. Captain Chen and her crew seemed to possess a mastery of science and technology that far surpassed anything the Zorgans had ever encountered, and they were willing to share that knowledge freely, without reservation. At first, Krasnik was suspicious of their motives, convinced that there must be some hidden agenda behind their generosity. After all, in the Zorgan Empire, knowledge was power, and power was something to be hoarded and jealously guarded. But as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, Krasnik began to realize that the humans were driven by a different set of values altogether. They seemed genuinely committed to the idea of peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit, even with a species that had once been their sworn enemy. It was a difficult concept for Krasnik to wrap his mind around, but he found himself slowly coming to respect and even admire the human way of thinking. They were a complex and contradictory species, capable of great violence and great compassion, but above all, they seemed to possess an unshakable belief in the power of cooperation and understanding. As the negotiations progressed, Krasnik and his team found themselves learning more and more about human culture and history. They listened with rapt attention as Captain Chen and her crew regaled them with tales of Earth's tumultuous past, of the wars and conflicts that had shaped their species and driven them to reach for the stars. And in return, the Zorgans shared their own stories, their own struggles and triumphs. They spoke of the great battles they had fought, the worlds they had conquered, and the challenges they had overcome. And as they spoke, a newfound respect began to grow between the two species, a recognition of the common threads that bound them together. Cultural exchange. As the negotiations between the Zorgans and humans progressed, the initial hostility and suspicion began to give way to a tentative curiosity. With each passing day, the crews of the Zorgan fleet and the TSS Indomitable found themselves increasingly drawn to one another, eager to learn more about the strange and fascinating beings they had once considered enemies. It started small, with hesitant exchanges of information and ideas. The humans shared their art and music, their literature and philosophy, while the Zorgans offered insights into their own rich cultural heritage. They marveled at the diversity and complexity of each other's societies, finding common ground in their shared love of learning and discovery. As the cultural exchange deepened, so too did the bonds between the two species. Zorgan engineers found themselves working side by side with human scientists, collaborating on projects that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Human medics shared their knowledge of advanced healing techniques, helping to treat the injured Zorgan crews and earning their gratitude and respect. Even Krasnik found himself drawn into the growing camaraderie. He spent long hours in conversation with Captain Chen, discussing everything from military strategy to the nature of the universe itself. And as he listened to her stories of Earth's tumultuous history, of the countless wars and conflicts that had shaped her species, he began to see the humans in a new light. They were not the weak and primitive beings he had once dismissed, but rather a species forged in the crucible of adversity. They had faced challenges that would have broken lesser races, and yet they had emerged stronger and more determined than ever. It was a resilience that Krasnik couldn't help but admire, even as he struggled to reconcile it with his own long-held beliefs. As the weeks turned into months, the cultural exchange between the Zorgans and humans blossomed into a true partnership. They worked together to repair the damaged Zorgan ships, sharing technology and expertise in a spirit of mutual benefit. They explored new worlds and new frontiers, each species bringing its own unique strengths and perspectives to the table. And through it all, Krasnik found himself questioning the very foundations of Zorgan society. He had always believed that strength came from conquest and domination, that the Zorgan way was the only way. But as he watched the humans and their Zorgan allies working together, achieving things that neither species could have accomplished alone, he began to wonder if there might be another path. It was a thought that both thrilled and terrified him, for it challenged everything he had ever known. But as he looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities that lay before them, he knew that he could no longer ignore the truth that had been staring him in the face all along. The galaxy was changing, and the Zorgans would need to change with it if they hoped to survive. And perhaps, just perhaps, the key to that survival lay not in conquest, but in cooperation and understanding. It was a daunting prospect, but as Krasnik watched the humans and Zorgans laughing and learning together, he felt a flicker of hope for the future. They had come so far, achieved so much, and he knew that they had only just begun to scratch the surface of what was possible. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Krasnik was ready to face it, ready to lead his people into a new era of discovery and growth. And with the humans by their side, he knew that anything was possible. So he threw himself into the cultural exchange with renewed vigor, determined to learn all he could from these remarkable beings who had so utterly transformed his world. And as he did so, he felt a sense of purpose and excitement that he had never known before. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The Zorgans and humans were no longer enemies, but partners, united in their quest to explore the wonders of the universe and unlock the secrets of the cosmos. And together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, stronger and wiser for the journey they had shared. Part 5. An unexpected ally. Just as the bonds between the Zorgans and humans were beginning to strengthen, a new threat emerged from the depths of space. A rogue Zorgan warlord, known as Zolthor the Unyielding, had been watching the growing alliance with growing anger and disgust. He saw the humans as a weakness, a corrupt influence that threatened to undermine the very foundations of Zorgan society. Determined to seize the advanced human technology for himself and purge the Zorgan Empire of what he saw as a cancer, Zolthor gathered a fleet of loyal followers and launched a surprise attack on the TSS Indomitable and its Zorgan allies. The attack was brutal and devastating, catching the Allied forces off guard and inflicting heavy casualties on both sides. Zolthor's ships, armed with stolen human weapons and driven by a fanatical hatred of the new alliance, tore through the defense perimeter with terrifying ease. On the bridge of his flagship, Krasnik watched in horror as his ships were decimated by the onslaught. He had never seen such raw power, such unbridled aggression, and for a moment, he felt a flicker of doubt. Perhaps Zolthor was right. Perhaps the humans were a weakness, a liability that the Zorgans could not afford. But as he watched Captain Chen and her crew fighting alongside his own warriors, their determination and courage unwavering in the face of overwhelming odds, Krasnik knew that he could not turn his back on them. They were more than just allies now. They were friends, comrades in arms, and he would not abandon them in their hour of need. With a roar of defiance, Krasnik ordered his remaining ships to form up around the TSS Indomitable, creating a wall of steel and fire that stood firm against Zolthor's relentless assault. And as the battle raged on, he found himself fighting side by side with Captain Chen, their combined strength and tactical prowess turning the tide against their common foe. It was a desperate struggle, a test of will and endurance that pushed both species to their limits. But as they fought together, united by a common cause and a shared sense of purpose, Krasnik and Chen began to see the true potential of their alliance. They were more than just two species, more than just allies of convenience. They were a team, a force to be reckoned with, and together, they had the power to shape the future of the galaxy itself. With each passing moment, each hard-won victory, the bond between the Zorgans and humans grew stronger. They adapted to each other's strengths and weaknesses, learning from each other's tactics and strategies. And as they did so, they began to turn the tables on Zolthor and his fanatical followers. It was a long and grueling battle, but in the end, the Allied forces emerged victorious. Zolthor's fleet lay in ruins, his dreams of conquest shattered by the combined might of the Zorgans and humans. And as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, Krasnik and Chen stood side by side, battered but unbroken, their partnership forged in the heat of battle and tempered by the bonds of friendship and trust. In the aftermath of the conflict, as the Zorgan and human crews worked together to repair the damage and chart a new course for the future, Krasnik knew that something profound had changed. The old ways of conquest and domination, the beliefs that had once seemed so unassailable, now felt hollow and empty in the face of what he had experienced. He had seen the power of cooperation, the strength that came from diversity and understanding, and he knew that if the Zorgans were to have any hope of surviving in the new era that was dawning, they would need to embrace that power, to forge new alliances and new partnerships with the species they once sought to conquer. It would not be an easy path, for change never was. But as Krasnik looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities that lay before them, he felt a sense of hope and determination that he had never known before. The Zorgans and humans had faced the worst that the universe could throw at them, and they had emerged stronger and more united than ever, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to defend their alliance and build a brighter future for all the peoples of the galaxy. A new era dawns. In the wake of their victory over Zolthor and his renegade forces, the Zorgans and humans found themselves at a crossroads. The battle had been won, but the future remained uncertain, fraught with challenges and opportunities that neither species had ever faced before. For Krasnik, the path forward was clear. He had seen the power of cooperation, the strength that came from diversity and understanding, and he knew that the Zorgans could no longer afford to cling to the old ways of conquest and domination. If they were to survive in the new era that was dawning, they would need to adapt, to forge new alliances and partnerships with the species they had once sought to subjugate. It was a daunting prospect, but as he looked out at the stars, at the vast expanse of the galaxy that lay before them, Krasnik felt a sense of excitement and possibility that he had never known before. The Zorgans had always been a proud and mighty race, but perhaps their true greatness lay not in their ability to conquer, but in their capacity for growth and change. And so, with a heavy heart, but a clear sense of purpose, Krasnik made his decision. He would return to the Zorgan homeworld, to the heart of the empire he had once served so faithfully, and he would seek to build a new future for his people, one based on cooperation and mutual respect, rather than fear and domination. But he would not do it alone. As he prepared to depart, Captain Chen approached him, her eyes shining with a mix of sadness and hope. She had come to respect and admire the Zorgan captain, to see in him a kindred spirit and a true friend. And she knew that the alliance they had forged could not end here. "Krasnik," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I have a proposition for you. The Terran Federation has long sought to establish peaceful relations with the races of the galaxy, to build a network of alliances and partnerships that can stand against the challenges of the cosmos. And I believe that the Zorgans have a vital role to play in that network." Krasnik looked at her, his eyes widening in surprise and confusion. "What are you saying, Natalie?" he asked, using her first name for the first time since their fateful meeting so many months ago. Chen smiled, a warm and genuine smile that seemed to light up the room. "I'm saying that we need each other, Krasnik. the Zorgans and the Terrans, working together as equals and partners. We have so much to learn from each other, so much to gain from a true alliance of our peoples, and I believe that together we can build a better future for all the races of the galaxy. Krasnik was silent for a long moment, his mind racing with the implications of her words. He had always believed that the Zorgans were destined to rule the galaxy, to bend all other races to their will. But now, faced with the prospect of a true partnership with the humans, he found himself questioning everything he had ever known. And yet, as he looked into Chen's eyes, at the hope and determination that shone there, he knew that she was right. The Zorgans could not stand alone, could not cling to the old ways and expect to survive in the new era that was dawning. They needed allies, partners who could help them navigate the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. And so, with a nod and a smile, Krasnik made his decision. "I accept your proposal, Natalie," he said, his voice ringing with a newfound sense of purpose and resolve. "Let us forge a new alliance between our peoples, a partnership that can stand the test of time and build a better future for us all." And with those words, a new chapter in the history of the galaxy began. The Zorgans and the Terrans, once bitter enemies, now stood together as allies and friends, united in their determination to explore the wonders of the universe and unlock the secrets of the cosmos. It would not be an easy road, for change never was. There would be challenges and setbacks, moments of doubt and uncertainty. But as Krasnik and Chen looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities that lay before them, they knew that they were ready to face whatever lay ahead together. For the first time in their long and turbulent history, the Zorgans and the humans had found common ground, a shared sense of purpose and destiny that transcended the barriers of species and culture. And as they set forth on their new journey, their hearts filled with hope and determination, they knew that they were not just forging a new alliance, but a new era of peace and progress for all the peoples of the galaxy. The age of conquest and domination was over. The age of cooperation and understanding had begun, and the Zorgans and the Terrans would lead the way, building a brighter future for generations to come. And so, as the TSS Indomitable and the Zorgan fleet set forth into the vast expanse of space, their crews united by the bonds of friendship and trust, they knew that they were not just explorers and adventurers, but pioneers and trailblazers, charting a new course for the galaxy and all who called it home. The journey ahead would be long and difficult, but they were ready to face it, ready to learn and grow and discover together. For in the end, they knew that the greatest strength of all lay not in the power of their weapons or the might of their ships, but in the unbreakable bonds of camaraderie and understanding that had brought them together and would guide them through whatever challenges lay ahead. And as the stars beckoned and the universe called, the Zorgans and the Terrans answered, ready to embrace the endless possibilities of a new era, and to build a future that would shine bright for all the ages to come.